Good Sunday afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the KocheranStrong Foundation podcast. This will be episode number 2. All opinions are mine and mine only. Do not reflect anybody else unless they place their opinion on here themselves. Let's get right into it. We want to work on first responder mental health, and in doing that, I was having a conversation with a former colleague the other day, and we got to talking about victimization of our first responders. Now, if you are not in the first responder community, you may not grasp what I'm talking about, but our first responders go through and they see things that the public normally doesn't. I'm not saying that the public doesn't see it, but they do not see it on a daily basis the way that we do. In doing that, we used to, back before cell phones and the internet and all this other stuff, we would actually talk to each other. We would sit down at the kitchen table in the firehouse, or at the squad table at the sheriff's office or police department, or we would actually meet up after calls and we would talk, and a lot of it was just kind of going through what we just saw, whether it's a good call, bad call, whatever, but just kind of going through it like a debrief. And when we did that, we actually got it off our chest, which is important to do as quickly as possible. And it wasn't a very long session, and it didn't pertain to just that call. A lot of it was you blowing off steam, telling jokes, cracking on each other, having a good laugh. But what it was a de-stressor, and it enabled us to go to that next call and not still feel the angst and anxiety and the images of what we just saw. And it was good for the mental health. And now we don't do that. Our police officers, the sheriff's deputies, highway patrol, they're so busy that they just don't even have time to sit and talk anymore. They're going call to call. The fire departments are different these days. When I worked second or third trick, I could go by any fire department, usually Friday or Saturday night. The doors were open. Everybody was sitting outside having a smoke, having a joke. And I could sit there with them for a few minutes and blow off a little steam. And not only did I increase the amount of brothers and sisters I had by doing that, I increased my mental health outlet. We don't have that anymore. You can drive by a firehouse and not even see anybody there anymore. And if it's a full-time department, such as your larger cities, they may have that. But in the smaller communities, we don't have that anymore, because our volunteer fire departments are just that. They're volunteer, so they're not there every day and night, They're not there every day and night. And the volunteer pool is not what it used to be. And the pool of candidates for law enforcement and things like that is also not what it used to be. I was talking with a friend who is an instructor, and he said he had a guy the other day. It was the first time he's ever had somebody he handed the car keys to for a training, and the kid looked at him and went, "What's this for?" He didn't know what a car key was. Everything he had ever done was push button, and push button on the dash. Never used a car key before. So we're moving into a new generation of officers and EMTs and firefighters who are using technology but have never used basic items. I'm waiting for a Bluetooth fire nozzle soon, for somebody to ask for one of those, because everything's Bluetooth now. But they're also not as grouped the way we used to be. The same instructor said, "Yeah, I got kids that have never held a conversation with anybody. You can tell because they're in a classroom with their own peers and they barely talk to them. You wouldn't have done that when we were in training. You couldn't get us to shut up." So the culture is different, but the problems are the same. So the old way of go back to work, you're going to be fine, it has to go out the window. And we say that, but then what do we do about it? When we were talking about the victimization, we were always also talking about certain courts don't see us as victims in certain cases. One of those being, as an example, disorderly conduct. The officer or the EMT or the fireman cannot be a victim of the disorderly conduct. But here's the problem. When we are there witnessing this disorderly conduct, and whether there's people around or not, and this person is being disorderly, it's usually followed with verbal assault from this person. In my career, I've been called many names. I've been taunted about my weight, about my hair, about what I'm wearing, what I'm driving, the state of my uniform, the lack of preparedness for whatever. There's always been some verbal assault attached to a disorderly conduct, especially when you're talking to somebody who's amped up and they're at a certain point and you're trying to bring that person back down and they don't want to come down. So what do? They assault you verbally because they want you to come up to their level so they can stay there. And in doing that, they place stress on us because we're expected to behave and perform in a certain manner. And now this person is pushing the buttons, so to speak, and we are expected to not bite into that. And it does happen, I'm not going to say that, but when you're trying to keep your calm and calm another person at the same time, that's stress. That's causing stress. If you think it's not, you are mistaken. And you don't have to be a cop to go through that. There are people who don't want to go to the hospital. There are people who don't want you to touch their house. It could be burning. They don't want whatever it may be. They're verbally assaulting us. And in doing so, causing stress. And now we don't have this outlet that we used to have. We used to have this great outlet, talking to each other, and now people just don't, So we build this up, and then there comes a day when you have a bad incident and you lose it, or you get hurt, and you're away from the crew for a long period of time. You lose that closeness you don't have with family, you don't have with friends. My circle of friends is very large, for the most part, in the extent of the type of work people do. And I can't make certain jokes around certain groups because they don't get the humor in it. They don't get the meaning of what the joke is or what the topic is because they've never seen it. They've never experienced it. So they take it as dark humor. And yes, some of it is. I'm not going to downplay that. However, I can tell that same joke to a couple police or fire buddies of mine, and we're going to have a good chuckle about it because we know it's just that. It's just a joke. It's a stress reliever. It's a way to get this topic that is burning inside me out of me. And there was always this stigma. Yeah, if I tell them I'm having bad thoughts, or I'm having bad dreams, or I'm having issues with this, that, or the other, I appear weak, or they're going to take my badge and gun, or they're going to put me on suspension and make me go talk to a shrink. Here's the thing. You can talk to a medical professional. I am. And it works. But I can tell you what works more is sitting around the campfire with a bunch of firefighters and retired military and retired police and cutting up and telling jokes, and it feels like the old times. And it feels like that part of what I used to do that I am missing the most. But it also is a way for me to relieve stress. And I can pick out in the group someone who is either needing help more willing to give someone else help, including me. I can fall on both sides of that. Sometimes I feel great and I'm able to talk and discuss and help others with their problems. And then some days I just don't. I'm the guy needing the help. I'm the guy who can't keep my head straight. I can't keep my head in the game today. So we have to look at these things. One of those being the victimization of our first responders. We have to find a way to get the courts and the lawyers, prosecutors, law directors, whatever they may be, to understand that that is a stress. That is an actual assault on us, because it is directed at us, because that person does not want something to happen, or be an arrest, taken to the hospital, whatever it may be. But they are doing everything to keep us from performing our jobs, but they're also doing it to try and tick us off, to get our goat, so to speak. So we have to have some sort of element in the crime written in it, or something that says if that person is a peace officer, if that person is a first responder, and there's no one else around to witness, that it's still disorderly conduct. Because if they weren't acting the way they were acting, we wouldn't be there. It's kind of like tasering a guy, and then you don't charge him for nothing. What would you taser him for? You can't violate someone's rights and not have a good reason on our side. That's how you get in trouble. But yet they can violate our right and nothing happens to them. And that's not fair. We are not the public punching bag. I'm sorry. That is not what we signed up for. We signed up to help folks. We signed up to make our little area we live in better, not be the public punching bag. And for our courts and our prosecutors and our lawyers to allow this to happen is an atrocity, because you can't have us have the personal issues that we have in our families, in our lives, then the professional stuff that we see, and now we have another component, and for us to just go, oh, it's okay, it's all right, yeah, it's cool, I'll eat this one. I'm sorry. It adds to the stress that we already have. First responders are not the gods. We're not gods. We're not supermen. We are people who decided our focus was others. Being said, we expect some sort of protection because we do that. If someone, and in my case, shoots at me, that makes me the victim. It was not in the course of my duties. I was not trying to arrest somebody. I just got shot by somebody who was trying to commit suicide by cop, is what it looks like from the outside looking in for me. And I'm a victim. But somebody calling me a fat and followed by a curse word, or bald followed by a curse word, that's not an assault. I'm sorry, you're wrong. It is. Because if John Smith out here says that to this other guy and they get in a fight over it, guess what the cause was? He was calling him names. He was verbally assaulting him. So how are you going to write it up? You're going to write it up that this guy started verbally assaulting this guy didn't take it, and that's how he got to go throwing hands. So why are we not taking that the same way for our first responders? It's ridiculous. We're held to a higher standard. Got that. We know what we signed up for. Got that also. But what we signed up for wasn't to be the public punching bag. It was not to be the verbal abuse takers of the world. I'm sorry. You did that to if you did that to someone who was, let's say, the President of the United States, I guarantee you something's going to happen to you. I guarantee you. Did he sign up for that? Is that what he signed up for? Or did he sign up to lead the country, bring us into prosperity, to bring up the economy, to bring up people who are patriotic and love their country and have a sense of pride, not to be the public punching bag? Same with our media, whether it be social media or the internet media or network media. We are not their punching bag. And here's another issue that there is a problem with. Everybody wants transparency. Love it. Agree with it. But when you look at my case, there is a law in Ohio. It's called Marcy's Law. You're not allowed to give certain pieces of information out to the public because of the danger to the victim. I was the victim. I was not making an arrest. I was at the sheriff's office doing paperwork. I was minding my own business, and I was assaulted and almost lost my life. But the department, not their fault, being transparent, released the video. Now, you kind of have to look at it like, does that count towards Marcy's Law? Because I was a victim. And Marcy's Law says you can't release certain pieces of information about the victim, but yet, here it was all over the news. It's all over the internet. It's all over YouTube. How difficult that is for me. You don't think that doesn't add stress to me? When someone says, man, I saw your video the other day, guess what that does? That makes me go back to that day. It takes me back to that day. Or if I'm going through YouTube and I hit my YouTube search, guess what's on my YouTube search? Because it doesn't go away. We have to find ways, and not just putting our folks in front of a mental health professional, to take away the stressors, to take away things as they happen or as close to as possible when they happen, so that our folks have an outlet and they're not sitting on all this. I sat for 4 days with a tube in my mouth and I couldn't communicate, couldn't type, couldn't do sign language, couldn't do anything. And you know, all I did was lay there and think about all the stupid stuff that has happened in my life from as long as I can remember until the time I ended up in that hospital. And that just about drove me crazy because I had no outlet. I can't tell anybody I don't feel right. I can't tell anybody I'm sitting here having these bad thoughts. I'm not able to write. I'm not able to type. I have no muscle control of my hands. I've been laying in a coma for 8 days. And if half that stuff had been addressed at the time that it happened, I probably wouldn't even remembered it. Probably not. And I can't be the only one. Because trust me, I am not the smartest crayon in the box or the prettiest. But I'm still in that box. And that box tells me that I'm not the only one. We have to find these small focal points. We have to address these small, unthought of focal points. They are the center of how we recharge. They're the center of how we get our batteries back up to full so we can perform at peak performance, at peak levels. You can't constantly put us in situations that cause stress and trauma and then expect us to be top notch when we come into a trauma situation. This is not how it works. It's not how it works. Letting our folks know and teaching our folks how to properly do this could save lives. Could lower our suicide level. Could lower our folks who have heart issues, who have mental health issues, I can guarantee you can talk to 5 people in our profession, and 4 of them are going to tell you there's nothing wrong with them, and all 4 of them are going to be wrong, because there is something wrong with them. They just don't want you to know there's something wrong with them. And the one that tells you, you better pay attention. If they're brave enough to say, yes, I need help, or yes, I need to talk to someone, or yes, there's something wrong with me, you damn well better know that that person has jumped hurdles to tell you that. Because it's not a matter of pride at that point. It's not a matter of fear of losing their job at that point. It is an innate fear that they are going to do something drastic, including or up to take their own life. And the other 4, you have no idea how far or how close they are to jumping those same hurdles and saying, yeah, I got to talk to somebody, man. There's just something wrong with me. There's something so wrong with me. I can't take it anymore. When they reach that point, that level of danger to their personal being, their personal health, and not just mentally, physically and emotionally, and even spiritually, can be enough to push them over the edge. So let's start doing that. Let's start focusing on our folks. Let's start making sure that we have these things intact for them to utilize. And in saying that, I am taking the foundation to a next level. We are going to focus our bulk on the first responder mental health. That will include us. We're going to start an outdoor trail therapy type of helping. We're going to take folks out, and we're going to do things that are fishing and camping and kayaking and things of that nature, because they need to be around like-minded people, but they also need to be out of their normal element that keeps them in the cycle of bad behavior because they don't know any better. It's going to be renamed. We will still be the KocheranStrong Foundation, but this portion of it, of the foundation that will be doing this, will be called the KocheranStrong Warrior Adventures. And we will do events, we will have events, but we'll also be able to have a list of folks to help when we have a first responder that needs that. When we notice it and someone brings it to our attention, hey, look, my husband, my wife, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my brother, my son, he's a first responder, she's a first responder, and they are struggling right now. I can see it, and they're telling us they're struggling. Can you help them? And we can drop what we're doing if we need to and say, hey, send a mass list out to all the people we have gathered that have volunteered to go, and say, look, I need a couple people for this weekend. Can anybody go? There's no obligation. They're not obligated to do it every single time. But if they're able, they can say, yep, and we have all the camping gear, we have the fishing stuff, we just take off, we go, we get outdoors. It's not a kumbaya session. It's a bunch of us just getting together and letting them know there is a better way to do things. There is a way of life that is controllable. And in doing that, hopefully, we are giving them a tool to say, listen, man, all these people here, they're here for you. Whether you know them or not, they're here for you because they've been there and they understand it, and it wasn't there for them, or it was there for them and they reaped the benefits, which is me. I did that. A group called KGX Expedition. Great group of guys, Darren Wood and Larry, forgive me, Larry, I forgot your last name, and all those guys, And there were people there who were not even first responders, and they did this for me and another guy, and it worked wonders for me. It really did. It gave me a focal point that I'm not the only one. I'm not worst case scenario. And in doing this, I actually helped other people because they saw that I had progressed in the things that I had done and the attitude that I had and what I was wanting to drive this foundation to be. And to them, that was a motivator. And in returning, I was all, hey, this is what I want to do. This is how it needs to be done. This is going to work. So there's our introduction to the KocheranStrong Warrior Adventures. We're probably going to take someone with us here in a couple weeks. I have someone in mind, so I'm gonna run it by them, see if they're available. But the goal is to take them out, have a good time, have some fun, get away from the normal life stressors for a little bit so they can focus on their mental health and get over some hurdles. We're not going to solve their mental health. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is getting some things behind us that we can and we can control, and then getting things in place so they can help themselves when they leave, so they can help others when they leave, so they have a way to focus on the smaller things and not a big picture that is uncontrollable. Sometimes we get some of that out of the way, we get some of that out of the way. Now look what we have just a smaller problem. Okay, this is where I need to focus, or this is where I'm having issue. And then the idea being one at a time, one a day, one a week, one a month. It's the only statistic I care about is one. Thank you for your attention today. I appreciate it. You can visit us on Facebook at the KocheranStrong, one word, Foundation. It's the only official KocheranStrong Foundation site at the moment. If you'd like to donate, there is a QR code on there for our Venmo and our Cash App. And all the proceeds, 100%, go into our mental health fund and warrior adventures, and provides equipment maintenance, food, trip fees, gas, things like that. But it also provides us a little bit of money that if someone needs to go get mental health professionally and they're having financial issues with it, such as they don't have insurance or whatever, and they come to us, we're going to try and get this so we can help them out, because money should never be an issue, ever be an issue for someone to go and say, I don't feel good, I'm going to do bad things, or I have bad thoughts. Money should never get in the way of that, ever. So thank you again. Look forward to talking to you. If you have any questions, please hit me up. Email address is KocheranStrong@gmail.com. Facebook is the KocheranStrong Foundation, and there'll be more social media coming up very soon, and I look forward to talking to you all. Have a great day.